Welcome to the Mike and Doug Show. This is Doug. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Doug.
You have found a person who seems to be right at the crux of history to be able to turn American mainstream media into nothing more than a British propaganda machine. Can you tell us about General Sarnoff and your research and what you've been up to?
Yeah, David Sarnoff is a well-known name, and the Sarnoff family has run NBC since it began. And David Sarnoff was the father, who is a contemporary of Guglielmo Marconi, and is definitely the bridge figure between the First Imperial Press Conference in 1909 and our modern media, not only NBC, but CBS, and then their linkages and support of the international surveillance system that we all suffer from right now.
Well, that's complete and total, because propaganda in America, as we've said many times, comes from the ability of the president to use the National Defense Authorization Act and the U.S. Patriot Act, now called the U.S. Freedom Act, to basically propagandize America. Recently, Trump was spouting off about the fact that he's waited years for his replacement for the people who left the Global Engagement Center, which is the headquarters for the Board of Broadcasting Governors that controls the voice of America. But what people forgot is the British, during Obama's time, they were paid $86 million to propagandize us and try to play like they were Russians meddling in the election. So that whole thing of the military propagandizing from mainstream media goes right back to General David Sarnoff, who was Eisenhower's assistant in World War II. But before that, he started with Marconi and was right there where he got to see that the British had stolen Tesla's inventions and all the patents, and
Correct.
then turned it into the Marconi scam. And then Sarnoff became the British representative for Marconi. And I love it. Anytime a British company comes to America and it's a big fat lie, they always use the word America in it. So RCA, the Radio Corporation of America, should have been the Radio Corporation of Britain. And what you have put out for us, amazing report. It's astounding. I don't know how you find this stuff. I mean, I feel like I should go back and study history, though I have a degree in it.
Because we need to restudy our history, because this is changing everything that we thought we knew about our age of the 20th century. It's just astounding how big of a lie we were told throughout our schooling and our parents' schooling, and to a certain degree our grandparents' schooling, and how pervasive the Pilgrim Society rewriting of British history was to our education, and how our intelligence communities and our media were complicit in the telling of this lie.
Well, I think that it was amazing when you found the sources of the OSS and the way that turned into the CIA and who was involved, and that the British sources were profound. Matter of fact, the British basically trained us in these subversive techniques of propagandizing. And then when we found that Serco literally gets to preview every patent of every American and then basically weaponize it with their group. We have our group, Highlands Forum, and the Office of Net Assessment. And so they steal these patents to this day. But to think that FDR literally pooled patents for the sake of national security, anything to do with communications, basically our entire mainstream media, any wireless, any radio, any television, any internet, any communication right now is absolutely still under the same umbrella of control. So you have again found that it comes back to patents. And I just want to say this: patents are our future. They're the greatest assets that we have. Patents determine our future. And if you have no morality as the patents come across your table and you weaponize everything for the sake of the military-industrial complex, unfortunately, morality is not even considered.
And now it's real clear that the robber barons of the late 1800s, early 1900s were committed to stealing any kind of technology that would allow them to weaponize it, make money on it, and then control the population. So they fused their beliefs about patents with their political beliefs. And that is the danger, that is the threat to humanity that I see. We knew that RCA was created in 1919. And at that time, Sarnoff was the vice president. He wasn't the CEO. But what we didn't know, and didn't know until we found in the congressional record in 1970, is that Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the Assistant Secretary of the Navy in 1919. That is probably the most powerful war-making position that we had in the United States, because it was a naval war with the Germans. What Roosevelt did is use his power as the head of the Navy, which means all Navy contracts. He dictated that all of the other potential competitors for Marconi Wireless had to give a non-exclusive patent right to all of their inventions, and he essentially cut out all competition for the further development of wireless technology as they move forward by dictating that pooling of patents, which is the exact term they use, and then the sale of Marconi America to RCA. He guaranteed that we would have no competition in the development of communications in the United States, period. And so here we have Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who then toodles along for another 20, 30 years, becomes president of the US. And what does he do as one of his first acts in 42? He dictated that all 50,000 patents that were developed by anyone in any Axis country or occupied country, all of their patents were confiscated by the United States. So what we didn't get in the RCA merger, we ended up getting in the 1942, it's called Patent at Works Act. And what that did is that guaranteed a continued monopoly for all of the people that were dictated to by Marconi Wireless and the British Privy Council. That's what that did. And then in 44, Eisenhower assigned Sarnoff, who was a brigadier general then, to the Allied command headquarters. And he used Sarnoff as the communication director, who oversaw the development that we have come to know as the Five Eyes Agreement in 1946 on March 5th, where all intelligence coming out of the United States would be shared with Great Britain and certain Commonwealth countries. And what that did is that guaranteed we would not have any communication that wasn't able to be monitored by the Privy Council, Great Britain. And that agreement exists to this day. The surveillance that was discovered at Trump Tower in 2016, the head of the British GCHQ, which was one of those organizations created in 46, was the person who oversaw the wiretapping of Trump Tower. So we see an attack on the United States by our quote allies. And here I'm not arguing, I don't have any issue with the British people, but I do have an issue with the political leaders in the Privy Council, because it's clear they don't respect American sovereignty at all. There's a picture of the Pilgrim Society archive in London, and it has a flagpole. The top flag is the British flag. Underneath the British flag is the American flag. And I guarantee you that's the way they see the world. They're driving us.
So government monopoly is nothing more than capitalistic socialism. And it's lies, because it's all black ops. And so if you talk about Sarnoff, really, I would say that when he came over for RCA, and then RCA developed into two other of the major broadcasting companies, it was absolutely controlled war-like action by a general to take over the propagandizing of America. And it is so effective that it's still going on today. And then in 1913, they set up the banking that was able to buy into all of these companies and buy the major stocks in all the large companies, and then control it through that type of manipulation. So it doesn't matter who you listen to, it's all the same.
We actually have documents that talk about a declaration of interdependence with these pilgrims, where they intentionally started altering the history books that were distributed in the United States, in our libraries and in our schools, to make it more favorable to this story of the Union of America and the UK. We're seeing two people that we always were taught to revere. One was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and the other one was Winston Churchill. As it turns out, they're pilgrims. And so the scheming of this pilgrims group throughout the 20th century to take power and to bring America back into the British fold has never stopped and is currently trying to take down President Trump.
All the lawyers for Carnegie and Rockefeller and all of the robber barons were part of a group called the Inquiry, set up by Woodrow Wilson. That group was the most vicious, vile robber barons in America and their lawyers. Anyone who's a member of the Pilgrims knows about the Empire Press Union. So David Sarnoff could not have not known about the Empire Press Union's spies, control of wireless, control of news, control of propaganda. He was simply the general who knew about the British Five Eyes connection that now needed to become no longer a War Department agency, but simply a corporation or a group of corporations that then control propaganda in America without letting them know that it goes right back to the British Privy Council and the monarchy of Britain.
Our patents are processed out of the UK by Serco, the former RCA. So what we see here is a continuity of agenda that has not broken between Serco and another corporation that we discovered, Kinetic, essentially have been given control of most of our infrastructure. These are British companies. And then the other thing we've discovered is that both Serco and Kinetic, who are associated with the Pirbright Institute and therefore the Wellcome Trust, are all controlled by the British Crown. The British Crown owns a golden share in those companies, which gives the monarch complete control over what is going on today with the takeover of President Trump. That has to be broken, because if you don't break that, then you can't fix anything. So the President Trump has a huge opportunity to completely defund the Senior Executive Service, which is driving the bus. Think of Senior Executive Service as nothing more than an extension of the Privy Council and the Crown agents in London. That's what we've got here. We've got a foreign government running the U.S. Republic. That's what these facts are telling us, loud and clear. Are we going to continue to ignore the Pilgrim Society, or are we going to start calling the enemy for what they are?
Well, Betsy decided that we're going to call them what they are. They're terrorist groups.
Right.
Big terrorist group, the Pilgrim Society. Big terrorist group, the Council on Foreign Relations, which is the British extension of the Royal Institute for International Affairs, which is an extension of Cecil Rhodes and Milner's Roundtable. These are nothing more, as you say, than extensions of the British coming into our country. And what you have shown with General Sarnoff is yet another traitor that shows that this was institutionalized and created our mainstream media and still controls our mainstream media. So at the point that Trump can review these contracts and just say, no, I decided that, the $86 billion lawsuit against Serco makes them the company we don't want to use. And then what happened? Well, the British sent in Kinetic, and Kinetic then started absorbing a lot of those contracts. Nobody even knows they exist. Their name starts with a Q, ends with a Q. Isn't that cute? And who are they? They're just the new Serco. And who was Serco? Oh, that was RCA. Who was RCA? That was the pooled patents of GE and Marconi and the Tesla. When it comes down to it, it's very simple, folks, and it's very simple to fix. Kick the British out of our patent office. Kick the British out of all of our intelligence. Kick the British out of our economics in our entire country and our banking system. And guess what? We will finally be free.